right, now it's time to bring in our next guest. That's going to be Cory Johnson, Chief Market Strategist at Epistrophe Capital Research. Welcome to the show, Cory.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's kick it off here with Google Alphabet post-earnings, getting a nice 6% pop here. And this is almost maybe a relief reaction because we saw some solid growth in cloud and, even some solid growth in YouTube. What was your takeaway from the report?
So my takeaway was actually related, but I think that the numbers we saw to cloud, we can talk about those later, but the YouTube numbers, frankly, were disappointing to me. We saw 2 quarters in a row where the growth rate has tailed off. We'd seen accelerating growth the prior, call it 4 quarters, that down to 13% year-over-year growth. That's still really good in a really big business, right? Double-digit growth at this size is amazing. But when you compare it to the cloud business was up 122% on a year-over-year basis. Again, on some really, really big numbers. The overall business at Alphabet, I still want to call it Google. Do you think it's because of the stock ticker? Yeah. I don't know. I can't get it, but in any case, the growth at Alphabet at this scale is just hard to imagine. So all the numbers seem silly. I was looking at my model before we came on the air, and I was thinking, wait, $13 billion in CapEx for the fourth quarter?
Right.
Yeah, that's what they said. These numbers are just hard to imagine. In every way, the company is big as it can be imagined and getting bigger.
Yeah, and if you look at that cloud revenue, I mean, they're starting to dig into AWS's, but is this more of a growth story in cloud in general where everybody can be winners in this space? We saw Oracle starting to dig into some of the market share there also. Is this a story about cloud in general, or is this a specific, Google, Alphabet, maybe, executing well there?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I know your question is facetious. Is this a growth story? Yeah, 122% in a year. I'd say that's good. If I grew 122% in a year, I'd be like 15 feet tall next year, which would be weird.
Yeah.
At least I'd finally be in the NBA. But I think it's a combination of things. But the way I'm looking at this is this company took a real big gamble. They've been using artificial intelligence and AI models for a very long time. The reason YouTube, for example, will give us a video that we don't want to turn off and keep finding those things is doing incredible analysis of like-minded users and trying to predict both what's in the videos and what's going to make us want to watch them. They were arguably, that company and the company we used to call Facebook, another name change, Meta, have been the most aggressive at using AI and the most successful at using AI and turning it into profitability long before we talked about generative AI. And so for them to say, hey, we need to invest billions more for this kind of a sizzle of generative AI on top of the stake of the AI models that we've got was a big risk for this big company. And they spent a lot of money on it and took a lot of heat for it. But we see it showing up in these results as reported last night. Yeah,
and if you take a look at the search, the death of search is not there yet. Competitive pressures, whether it's ChatGPT, AI search, and then Perplexity getting into the mix here. So, Google's not going to go down without a fight here, but then they've got, some regulatory issues with the Department of Justice coming down and breathing down their neck. What's your take here for, their stranglehold on search and maybe losing market share, or do you think this just makes them stronger here moving forward?
Google was formed out of the ashes of the Microsoft antitrust battles over the way Microsoft illegally used their browser to force Netscape and others out of the business and take that over. Again, it's not against the law to have a monopoly. It's against the law to use your monopoly to crush potential competitors in new businesses. And that's something that Google has been found guilty of doing. And they're going to pay a price for that. I don't want to gloss over it by the cliches we tend to use when we're going to throw out shorthand of legal or regulatory or whatever. I think we really need to look at how monopolistic behavior hurts capitalism, how it hurts companies' ability to develop new and create bigger and better and faster and stronger. However, within Google, that DNA, I think, is what we see with the use of Gemini. And we saw it again in the results from yesterday, where we saw Alphabet, or the Google pieces of Alphabet, really come out and try to reinvent the wheel and make their search continue to be dominant by using the tools of AI. And we'll see what the regulatory solution is going to be for this anti-competitive practices Google. It could be dramatic. It could be breaking up pieces of business and big pieces of the business. It could be controls on what they do in the future. It's likely to be both.
Right.
But I think you also have to look at the results right here and say they used AI to empower search in a more sort of obvious way with the results, and it's not hurting their business.
Yeah. By November 20th, we're supposed to get some more clarity on the potential recommendations from the Department of Justice, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Yep.
But on the flip side here, Cory, when you take a look at AMD getting hit here in the pre-market about 8%, guidance once again comes in a little bit light, and if you don't hit everything perfectly, you get punished, right?
Yeah, there were some weird comments on the call about lumpiness was a phrase that Lisa Su used in the conference call, and about coupled with some fantastic growth, you saw some sort of hints of it might not always be this good. The lumpiness stuff, there were some really good questions on the conference call as well, which you don't always have. But that commentary was really about the concentration of customers, and when we think about what we're just talking about with Google and Meta and Microsoft, right? Those are companies that are just so big, they can spend so much. Well, those are, we don't know about Google, but they are Microsoft, Meta, very important customers to AMD in the data center and for their data center GPUs. And so it's interesting that the biggest companies control so much budget. They also are at the whim of those big companies because there aren't a lot of other companies out there spending massive amounts on AMD GPUs.
Yeah, Lisa Su is going to give some more commentary this morning. But, if you take a look at this, you're fighting up against Nvidia in this space. They say their processor, GPUs are just as good, maybe even better, maybe cheaper. But at the same time, if they don't have maybe a lot of the, connections, I think, in the space and a lot of maybe the peripheral uses for that, your expectations for AMD, do traders start buying this up? Because valuation's still pretty high in this company at this point.
Yeah, valuation's very high on both of the companies you're talking about here, AMD and Nvidia. And I think that we're going to see a handful of things happen in the future, right? Right now, we're at a point where the old saying used to be, no one ever got fired for buying IBM. Well, no one ever got fired for buying Nvidia right now. And so I think what we're going to see over time is other companies and companies beyond the kind of Mag 7, if you will. Let's think of some of the other ones, like Tesla, even spending a lot of money buying Nvidia chips. You're going to see other companies willing to take a shot on an AMD or startups. There are startups in the semiconductor world. There have been over a dozen semiconductor startups that I know of in the semiconductor world here in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And you're going to see companies that have got a different approach to CPUs and GPUs for the data center that are more power efficient, that are cheaper to buy and cheaper to operate. And those are going to start to make some headlines here going forward.
Yeah, and also don't forget, a lot of these major tech companies that are buying up NVIDIA and AMD chips are developing their own AI chips at this point. So,
so that's one of the things you see here, right? If we're talking about Meta, we know they're buying a lot of GPUs from NVIDIA. Now we know they're buying a lot of GPUs from AMD, and we also know that they're developing their own. So they don't want to have all their bets on one number on this this craps table that is AI.
Yeah, all right, great discussion, Cory. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, that's Cory Johnson, Chief Market Strategist at Epistrophe Capital Research.